Hello once again. Welcome to the House of Graphic Literature. And this will be my final video of 2024. And it's a pretty big one because I'm talking about this very, very important release from Vertical and Kodansha, which is Ashita No Joe, Fighting for Tomorrow, Tomorrow's Joe, probably the most influential manga ever. And it has inspired so many generations of creators. It's inspired so many, inside jokes with animators. It's inspired and mangaka alike. The final panel of the series has become, you know, just it's basically become a meme at this point because it's in everything. And why is that? Well, it's because it's really fucking good. And this is such an important sports series. It's technically part of a trilogy of sports series. Trilogy, as in they were all written by the same guy around a similar time. There's Tiger Mask, and there's Star of the Giants. We don't have Star of the Giants nor Tiger Mask, but we finally got this. This is going to be 8 volumes. It is based on the 2003 version, which was also only 8 volumes. And, it's insane to me how long it took for us to get this. Now, mind you, I've been watching the Ashita No Joe anime because, it was finally time for me to get around to it, and I'm just going to tell you right up front, it's phenomenal, you should watch it. Even if you're not that much of a anime watcher, you're more into manga, I still recommend checking it out, just because it's just that fucking good. And so, whenever I saw that, that this was going to be published, I was very excited. But there are some factors that I will go over that is going to make this a hard sell for a lot of people. But for starters, let's talk about the book itself. Let's talk about the build. As you can see, it is hardcover. On the side there, you have the title. This title is weird, okay? The original series is just called Ashita No Joe, which is Tomorrow's Joe. That's literally what it means. Or Joe of Tomorrow. It can mean a lot of things. And so, why they decided to go with Ashita No Joe, Fighting for Tomorrow, it eludes me just a little bit. You know, it seems more like it'd be like a one or the other thing. Like, call it Fighting for Tomorrow, or call it Ashita No Joe, or just Tomorrow's Joe. Like, it seems kind of strange that, like, they combine these two titles, but, you know, it's whatever. I don't really give a shit. As you can see, this is a pretty thick book, because this does, collect, 2.5, volumes of the series, which is why there will be 8 of these. You have all this, you have a nice little summary on the back, and, right there is the price for this thing. I don't know if you can see that. $59.95. So this is the issue with this book, right? It is a very well crafted volume. It looks very nice, but the problem is that it shouldn't be that much, because okay, let's take this. This is Kamen Rider, released by Seven Seas Publishing for their classic manga line. Nearly same size. This is actually smaller. They legitimately, they stand, they pretty much match on the shelf. This is just like slightly a head shorter, but that's because it's rounded rather than squared off. But yeah, and this is this is $32.99. And this has the exact same amount of color pages, and it has extras. This has nothing. This has these color pages, which are very nice, admittedly. These are actually from the original serialization of the manga. And then it gets right into it. And it's this for the next 600 pages. And, you know, that's a little much. I don't exactly know the reason as to why this comic is so expensive and why it's so hard to, why it's so hard for just release this in a more accessible manner. Because this is a comic that I think should be accessible for everyone. Because of its importance and because of just how fucking good it is, I feel like this deserves to be in a more accessible format. But regardless of the fact, it's a very, very nice looking release. It has this type of paper in it, which is great. I love this paper from my manga. I don't need glossy paper. I don't need, like, thick matte paper. This is perfectly fine for me. The translation is solid. And my favorite aspect of this, I bumped the camera. My favorite aspect of this is the hand-drawn sound effects. Yes, the sound effects have legitimately been hand-drawn for this release. I actually, I follow social media of the guy who's done a lot of these sound effects, and they're super impressive. It takes me back to, you know, the old days of Viz, whenever all of their books used to have hand-drawn sound effects in them. It's really cool. But yeah, this is the original Ashita No Joe. So what is Ashita No Joe? What is it about? Well, it's a boxing manga. And that's putting it really, really, really broadly. There's legitimately no boxing in this series until the end of this chapter. Or, not chapter, the end of this volume. It takes 600 pages for them to actually start boxing. But I think that's not a bad thing at all. Because this series on the surface, you know, from the outside looking in, it seems kind of basic, but there's a lot of really good shit here, man. So, the series follows Joe Yabuki, who's this, he's this orphan dude. He doesn't really have any money, he doesn't have any family. He's just kind of on his own. And basically, he wanders into town one day, in Namidabashi, and basically he meets an old drunk named Danpei, who ends up seeing his skill after they get attacked by some assholes, and he decides that he wants to dedicate his, you know, his life to teaching Joe how to box. And Joe doesn't want to learn because he's a stubborn asshole. But eventually, he does give in, and he starts learning how to box. And that will follow him for a very, very long time until he eventually does become the champion and all that shit. But that's explaining the series in the most basic way possible, because this series has so many layers to it. The drama is fucking excellent. And there's really, like, there are a few manga that are quite like Ashita No Joe. Now, mind you, I'm speaking from experience of the anime series, which I have seen a pretty decent chunk of. I've seen basically the whole of the original first series, and I'm still only halfway through Ashita No Joe 2. But just having seen that, I can tell you that this manga is completely worth reading. Because there's so many fucking iconic scenes and so much shit that would go on to inspire just everyone. The art by Tetsuya Chiba early on looks basic, but you know, these layouts are really solid. And I feel like Chiba, he knows how to convey motion, and especially just fast dynamic motion. Because I mean, if you think about it, as I said, there's a trilogy of these sports manga. There's Star of the Giants, which is a baseball manga. There's Tiger Mask, which is a wrestling manga. And there's this, which is a boxing manga. All of which have some sort of, you know, heavy emphasis on motion. And Chiba really knows how to do that. And I appreciate that no one has same face syndrome in this series. Well, that's not true. Later on they will. But early on, no one has like no one looks like each other. There's Nishi, he's one of the best fucking characters. And it's really interesting seeing this, having already seen the anime, because the anime is directed by Osamu Dezaki, who is, you know, he's notorious for having these beautiful, like, extremely well crafted, very well animated and directed series. And so seeing how they took the manga and animated it is just so interesting to me. Because I know the events, but I view them in such a different manner. But there's still just something so exciting about it. About getting to relive this, but in a way that is so wholly unique. And it's genuinely baffling to me how long this took to get a proper translation. Of course, there's been a scanlation that has been done by fans for years, and many people, that's how they read Ashita No Joe. They read that original fan scanlation. But that scanlation is a little rough. The translation is a bit spotty, and those first 3 volumes, for whatever reason, they're flipped. Of course, this is unflipped in the manga orientation. This has a brand new translation, and as I mentioned, the hand-drawn sound effects. It's Yoko Shiraki, very important character for the entire series. This part in the anime is really excellent. The trial. Joe's such a fucking asshole. He can't even talk himself out of going to a juvenile delinquency center. And I think something that really, like, just sticks out in this comic is just the themes. Because it's not just, you know, the basic, like, sports themes of, oh, I gotta be the best, I gotta be the champion, yada yada. Oh, nice. An actual chapter break. Like, it's so much more than that. It's Joe wanting to... He wants to improve others' lives. At least at the beginning, he really wants to improve others' lives. But eventually, he starts doing it because he's so drunk on boxing. Boxing becomes the only thing that he can depend on. And that's basically what lays out the entire rest of the series. And I feel like that kind of just represents passion in general. If you have a passion for something, you kind of have to let it consume you, or else you'll really never be able to exceed at what you wish. And that's kind of what Joe does. Joe puts everything on the line for boxing because he loves boxing. It's simple as that. And there's a lot of men that he meets while he's slowly but surely learning how to box that end up altering his perception of not only the sport of boxing, but just the importance of connection. There's a lot of people that Joe meets along the way that kind of give him they give him motivation in one way or another. And probably the most important character that comes from this. We're coming right up to him. It's this guy right here. Toru Rikishi is the blueprint for every anime rival. Because he's cool, he's calm, he's collected. He has insane skill compared to our protagonist. And he has this perfect love-hate relationship. And this follows pretty far into the series until something that happens in the middle that really just changes everything. Toru Rikishi is like one of my favorite just characters in any anime ever. And it's you just have to experience it for yourself. I love these types of elements, you know. Learning via correspondence is so cool. It's so cool to me. I love this too. They actually went through the trouble of properly changing the typesetting of the letters so they're actually in English, which is really cool. There was definitely care put into this, is what I'm saying. There was definitely work and care put into this. But I still don't think that price tag really is warranted for something like this. This part of the anime is fucking goofy as hell. Trying to see Joe. Keep trying to find ways to sneak in until eventually they say they're part of the theater troupe. And this is whenever Joe's rivalry with Rikishi really starts getting to a point where he has his life depends on fighting this dude. It's really interesting seeing this version of Rikishi, because in the anime, all of the character designs in the anime are done by Akio Sugino, who has a very distinct style, if you know what an Akio Sugino character looks like. So it's funny seeing the original versions, because Rikishi is a little bit more... He's a little bit bigger, he's a little bit fatter in the face here. He's a little bit more, tall and skin and bones in the anime version. But you see, this is the kind of impact that, really... This is the kind of shit that really sells me on the overall look. Whenever someone gets punched in Ashita No Joe, you feel it. It's not just... You're not just looking at someone getting punched. You're legitimately... you could feel the oomph, the pushback. And... that's part of what made Joe so engaging for me. Every time Joe would get into a scrap with somebody, it would be just I would feel every single impact, and it's, you know, it really gets your adrenaline rushing, and I'm glad to see that the manga kind of has that same thing going for it. It's really interesting. This right here, this is one of the most famous shots in the anime, and it's so simple here. This, by the way, this is whenever this starts to actually become a boxing manga, because, you know, Joe actually learns, well, for starters, he learns what ends up being his signature move, and now he's gearing up for his big first major fight with Rikishi, which ends up following him for literally the rest of the series. This part is really good too. There we go. Finally, about 508 pages in, we finally get to see a boxing ring. It's funny, while flipping through the pages, you can just hear the music from the show in your mind. It's so cool. See that? That's impact, baby. That right there is what keeps me coming back. It's so good, man. Chiba is on another level, I tell you what. Still alive, too, which is amazing to me. This is fucking... It's so good, man. And this is how every boxing match feels in this series. You just feel every single punch. We're reaching the big climax here. And there you go. Next time, the exciting conclusion to Joe's match with Rikishi. But win or lose, his fight goes on for dignity, for the right to live his own way for tomorrow. And then Volume 2 coming soon. And then after that, that's kind of it. There's as I said, there's no special extra bullshit. It's just the book itself, which kind of leads me to, you know, the big final thing. Should you buy this? If you have the money to spare, yes, I do think you should. Because not only is this important, but it's excellent. It's a really, really well-crafted comic. If you can get it from somewhere where it's half price, in stock trades, and organic price books, those have a very affordable version of this that kind of puts it at basically the same level as this thing with how it's priced. Because honestly, if this is $60, this should be $60, but it's not. I got this for $20, and that should be what you can get these for. But with all that said, I really hope that this series actually gets to completion. And I'm hoping everyone gets to experience this series. And I'm hoping it gets bought, and I'm hoping we can get more cool shit like this. If that actually happens, that remains to be seen. But with all that said, I'm just really glad that we have this, and many people can finally experience the most important manga of all time. And with all that said, that's where I want to cut off. Thank you very much for watching, listening to me yap about how great Ashita No Joe is. And hopefully next year I'll have some other really cool shit that I can show y'all. But until then, if you have the means, please support this official release. There is a digital, by the way. The digital is much cheaper, so if you prefer to read your comics digitally, do that too. But yeah, please support the official release if you can, because, you know, if this sells well, we could get a lot of great shit from it. Yeah, that's really all else I can say. I'll see y'all next year for a bunch of other things like this. Um, and yeah, y'all have a very happy new year. And please watch and read Ashita No Joe. Thank you. Bye.